Want 10% off your MTG singles? Go to Flipside Gaming and enter the promo code POWER in all caps to receive 10% off $10 or more. Want to see extra videos? Sign up to our Patreon and get access to our Discord, early access to videos, Patreon-only videos, and much more. Need a better life tracker? Download the Gauntlet app for your phone. It keeps track of your life totals, counters, win rate, and so much more. It's free, so go check it out. More info is in the description. Thanks for watching. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Playing with Power MTG, where we play with the most powerful cards in the most powerful formats. Welcome to our Patreon special. When we reached our Patreon goal, we asked our patrons what they wanted to see. The votes came in, and the choice was Blind Commander. So what is Blind Commander? In its most basic form, 4 players sit at a table, bringing 4 decks. No one knows what the other has brought. Then, each player plays with another player's deck. A brief description is given to each player on how to pilot the deck and the wincons in it. Then, they play. So, we will determine the winner of tonight's game with a number of points. The person who wins the game gets a point, the deck that wins the game gets a point, and the most valuable player gets a point. Finally, each player has a free point to give whatever deck they feel was the most fun. If you want to be a part of the voting and see more Patreon videos, subscribe to our Patreon and get all kinds of perks. We really love hanging out with all of our patrons on the Discord, discussing episodes, and of course, voting on cool games like this. Thank you very much to all of our patrons and to everyone else who watches our videos. Now, without further ado, let's start out by showcasing our fighters and decks this evening. Everyone rolls to get a random deck. Folger gets Ryan's deck and reveals a commander, which is Demon Lord Belzenlok. Demon Lord Belzenlok is a 1-card wincon from the command zone. Frequently called Godo's ugly cousin, this was a deck submitted by one of our patrons. The basic principle is to cast Demon Lord Belzenlok, get every card from your deck into your hand, and then combo off for the win. Folger's opening hand contains a Lake of the Dead, Peat Bog, Bottomless Vault, Glacial Chasm, and a Swamp. Next, Adam gets Folger's deck and reveals the commanders, which are Timna the Weaver and Tana the Bloodsower. This variant of Bloodpod has a few special lines and meta calls, but the basic principle is to stack out the board and assemble your wincon. Adam's opening hand contains a Birthing Pod, Village Bellringer, Bloom Tender, Aveston's Pilgrim, Blood Moon, Arid Mesa, and a Bloodstained Mire. After that, Ryan gets Mike's deck and reveals the commander, which is Lord Windgrace. Just kidding, it's Joyra, Weatherlight Captain. This is a KCI Cheerios build looking to get advantage off of Joyra's ability and then win with Krark Clan Ironworks and a number of other combos. Ryan's opening hand contains a Ponder, Manifold Key, Misty Rainforest, Brainstorm, Mana Vault, and a Mana Drain. Finally, Mike gets Adam's deck and reveals the commander, which is Keranos, God of Storms. This is a deck that aims to do a polymorph type move by casting the commander and using Reality Scramble to get Thousand Year Storm onto the battlefield and then storm off for the win. Mike's opening hand contains a Chain of Vapor, Wheel of Fortune, Faithless Looting, Jataxian Probe, Counterspell, Mountain, and an Island. Without further ado, let's kick off this big bravado of boundless boisterous behavior. Ryan wins the old 96er eating contest and gets to start us off. Ryan plays a Misty Rainforest. He cracks it for a Volcanic Island. He casts a Ponder. He looks at the top 3, doesn't like what he sees, and decides to shuffle it away. He draws a card and passes the turn. Mike starts off his turn by paying 2 life and casting Jataxian Probe, targeting Adam. He looks at Adam's hand and draws a card. He plays a Mountain for turn. He casts a Faithless Looting, drawing 2 and discarding 2. Mike ends his turn. Folger plays a Swamp and passes. Adam plays a Forest for turn. He casts Aveston's Pilgrim. He gives the turn to Ryan. Ryan plays a Brainstorm for turn, drawing 3 and putting 2 back on top. He plays a Flooded Strand for turn. He cracks it for a Steam Vents into play untapped, paying 2 life. He casts a Mana Vault. He then taps the Mana Vault to cast Manifold Key. He uses the key to untap Mana Vault. All through, he passes. Mike plays an Island for turn. He casts Curse Totem. Folger thinks about his combo a little bit and then gets super sad about the totem. Mike ends his turn. Folger plays a Swamp for turn and passes. Adam plays an Arid Mesa for turn. Not being able to use his Avacyn's Pilgrim for mana, he decides to put it to good use and attacks Mike for 1. He passes. Ryan starts off his turn by casting his commander, Joyra, Weatherlight Captain. With 1 floating mana remaining, he untaps his mana vault with his Manifold Key. He casts a Zurin Orb, drawing from Joyra. He casts a Tormod's Crypt, drawing from Joyra again. He pays 2 life and casts a Taxian Probe, targeting Mike. He looks at Mike's hand and draws a card. He casts Ichor Wellspring, drawing through Joyra and drawing through the Wellspring. He plays a Mana Confluence for turn and passes. Mike plays an island for turn. He decides to hold up and give the turn to Folger. Folger plays a Bottomless Vault into play tapped. He passes. At the end of Folger's turn, Adam cracks his Arid Mesa, 4 plains. Adam plays a Bloodstained Mire for turn. He cracks it for a Blood Crypt into play untapped, paying 2 life. He casts a Blood Moon. Ryan isn't too happy about that situation, but it resolves. He attacks Mike again with his Pilgrim. He passes. At the end of Adam's turn, Mike casts Chain of Vapor, targeting Ryan's Joyra. This is right around the time that Mike realized he should have done this with the Blood Moon on the stack instead of on the battlefield. Because Chain resolves, Ryan definitely decides to sack a land to bounce the Blood Moon. During Ryan's draw step, he takes a damage from his Mana Vault. Knowing Blood Moon is coming, he decides to pass. Mike plays an island for turn. He casts Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. Everyone passes priority, and Ryan is super bummed about this because a resolved Jace is a lost game. While saving his interaction for Blood Moon, he instead decides to cast Mana Drain, countering the Jace. All through, Mike passes to Folger. During Folger's untap step, he leaves Bottomless Vault tapped and puts a storage counter on it. He plays a Peat Bog for turn and passes. Adam plays a Forest for turn. He attacks Mike with his Pilgrim. He recasts Blood Moon. Unfortunately, Ryan has no further interaction, and the Blood Moon resolves. Adam passes. During Ryan's draw step, he takes a damage from the Mana Vault. He uses some of his Mana Drain mana to untap the vault through Manifold Key. He does nothing else and passes. On his turn, Mike casts Izzet Charm, drawing 2 and discarding 2. He plays a Command Tower for turn and passes. Folger plays an Ebon Stronghold and also passes. Adam plays a Command Tower for turn. He attacks Mike with his Pilgrim. He casts his commander, Tana the Bloodsower. He gives the turn to Ryan. On his turn, Ryan taps his Mana Vault and untaps it through Manifold Key. He uses the floating mana to cast Winter Orb. Mike doesn't like having his land shut off, so he casts Counterspell, countering the orb. With nothing else, Ryan ends his turn. Mike casts Mana Crypt on his turn. He then casts Wheel of Fortune. Everyone discards their hand and draws a fresh 7, and Ryan puts Joyra back into the command zone. Mike plays a Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale, and Adam really likes that Blood Moon is on the battlefield right now. He casts a Lotus Petal. He then casts Narset, Arbiter of Veils. He activates Narset, looking at the top 4, and revealing a Past in Flames. He casts a Felwar Stone, and gives the turn to Folger. Folger plays a Myriad Landscape. Needing to get out of his cursed totem lock, he casts Beseech the Queen. He searches up a Perilous Vault, and passes to Adam. Adam plays a Godless Shrine for turn. It enters untapped due to Blood Moon. He casts Carpet of Flowers. He attacks Mike with Tana and the Pilgrim. Mike takes the hit, and Adam creates 2 Saproings. In his second main phase, he adds 3 black from this Carpet of Flowers. He casts his other commander, Timna the Weaver. He follows up with an Eldritch of Deep Shadow. He then casts Reanimate, targeting Bloom Tender in his graveyard. In response, Ryan cracks his Tormod's Crypt, exiling Adam's graveyard. Adam then casts Trinosphere. All through, and in a pretty good spot, Adam passes. Ryan plays a Spirebluff Canal. He casts Dockside Extortionist. Extortionist resolves, and Ryan creates 7 treasures. He passes the turn. During his upkeep, Mike loses his Mana Crypt trigger and takes 3 damage. He activates Narset, looking at the top 4 and revealing a Shattering Spree. He plays a Misty Rainforest for turn. He casts Shattering Spree, replicated twice, targeting Trinosphere, Mana Vault, and Manifold Key. All done blowing up artifacts, Mike passes. Folger plays a Swamp for turn. He decides to go onto a beatdown plan and cast Mikaeus the Unhallowed. Suddenly, everyone has a pretty good idea of what the combo is in that deck, and Folger gives the turn to Adam. Adam starts off his turn by attacking. He attacks Narset with his Saprolings, Mike with the Elves, and Ryan with his Commanders. Ryan blocks Tana with his Dockside, Narset dies, and everyone takes the rest. At the end of combat, before Adam's second main, Mike casts Explosion, drawing 2 and dealing 2 to Timna, killing it. In his second main phase, Adam casts Eidolon of Rhetoric. Ryan is really feeling the hate for Joyra this game, and Adam passes the turn. Ryan plays a Bloodstained Mire for turn. He casts his commander, Joyra, for the second time. Using his one spell per turn, he passes. During his upkeep, Mike loses his Mana Crypt trigger and takes 3 damage. He casts Merchant Scroll, fetching up a Cyclonic Rift into his hand. He plays a Mountain for turn and passes. Folger plays a Swamp for turn and passes. Adam plays a Scalding Tarn for turn. He attacks Mike for 7. Mike takes it, and Adam creates 2 more Saproblings. Adam ends his turn. Ryan plays a Polluted Delta for turn. He casts Reshape, sacking Ecor Wellspring and drawing a card. Reshape resolves, and Ryan fetches up a Mere Retriever onto the battlefield. He passes to Mike. At the end of Ryan's turn, Mike casts an overloaded Cyclonic Rift. Adam responds by casting Pyroblast, countering the spell. Mike starts off his turn by casting Reality Shift, targeting Eidolon. Eidolon exiles, and Adam manifests the top card of his library. Mike plays a Wooded Foothills for turn. To get some value, he casts Past in Flames. He starts off by floating mana and casting Turnabout from his graveyard, untapping all of his lands. He pays 2 life to cast a Taxian Probe from his graveyard, looking at Adam's hand and drawing a card. He casts Faithless Looting from his graveyard, drawing 2 and discarding 2. He casts Merchant Scroll from his graveyard, fetching up a Force of Will into his hand. He then finishes up by casting an overloaded Cyclonic Rift from his graveyard. Everyone else's non-land permanents are bounced, and Mike ends his turn. On Folger's turn, Folger commends Ryan on his great deck building skills and how well they can get around a Cyclonic Rift. Now that Blood Moon is off the table, Folger plays a Terrain Generator for turn. He casts Perilous Vault. He gives the turn to Adam. Adam starts rebuilding on his turn by casting Carpet of Flowers. He casts Elvish Mystic. He casts Avacyn's Pilgrim. He cracks a Scalding Tarn to fetch up a Stomping Grounds, into play untapped, paying 2 life. He moves to a second main phase and adds 3 red through his carpet. He casts Tana for the second time. He then finishes up by recasting Blood Moon. All through, and Ryan sighing heavily, he passes. Ryan draws a card for turn and slams down a basic island, the first he's seen all game. He does nothing else and passes, discarding down to hand size. At the end of Ryan's turn, Mike casts Brainstorm, drawing 3 and putting 2 back on top. During his upkeep, Mike loses his Mana Crypt trigger and takes 3 damage. He casts Anticipate, looking at the top 3, putting 1 into his hand and the rest on the bottom. He plays an island for turn. He casts his commander, Keranos, God of Storms. He passes to Folger. At the end of Mike's turn, Folger blows up the vault and exiles all non-land permanents. Folger plays an Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth for turn. He casts Demon Lord Belzenlock. In response, Ryan cracks both of his fetches. In response to that, Mike cracks both of his fetches as well. Learning their lesson, they both grab a basic mountain and a basic island each. With no other responses, Belzenlock resolves. This is the time when Ryan tells Folger that every non-land card in that deck has CMC 4 or greater. Folger flips over his entire deck, exiling all lands and getting every other card into his hand. Folger exiles Diabolic Tutor from his hand to cast Unmask, targeting himself. He discards Phantasmagorian. He activates Phantasmagorian from the graveyard, discarding Scourge Familiar, Dread Return, and Mastermind's Acquisition, returning it to his hand. Since Adam controls a forest, he casts Deepwood Legate for free. Since he discarded multiple cards this turn, he casts Hollow One for free. He then casts Dread Return for its flashback cost, sacrificing 3 creatures, targeting Scourge Familiar. Mike feels like this is the crux of the combo, so in response, he hard casts Force of Will, countering Dread Return. Folger's plans thwarted, he goes with a backup. He casts Living Death. All creatures are returned to the battlefield, including Scourge Familiar. He discards 6 cards to Scourge Familiar to add 6 black to his mana pool. He then casts Ever After, returning both Mikaeus the Unhallowed and Triskelion to the battlefield. He then demonstrates his loop, using Triskelion to shoot the entire table for the win. Ladies and gentlemen, that was quite a game. The players did very well piloting decks they had never seen before, and it was very cool to see that win. The most valuable player was Adam. He controlled the board with Folger's deck and did a great job piloting it. The most valuable card was Blood Moon. Completely shutting down multiple decks at the table, this permanent was an absolute powerhouse. But we still need to tally the scores and determine the winner. Winner of the match, Folger, 1 point. Winning deck, Ryan, 1 point. The most valuable player goes to Adam, 1 point. Finally, each player awards a point to whatever deck they felt was the most enjoyable. Ryan chooses Keranos, so Adam gets a point. Folger chooses Demon Lord Belzenlock, Ryan gets a point. Mike chooses Demon Lord Belzenlock, Ryan, another point. And finally, Adam chooses Demon Lord Belzenlock, making Ryan's deck the winner of this episode. Congratulations to all the players who did so well bringing cool decks to the table and piloting them very well for going in blind. Well, that about wraps it up for our Patreon special. Tune in next time when we duke it out to see who will be king of the competitive EDH table. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.